I am right now very satisfied with the doe herd that I have. Potentially at this convention, I could find that perfect genetic line, that look that I have in my mind that could complement the genetics on my farm. And if I can find that, I can restructure the genetic program and I can be going for years ahead.
This is Doug Roberts. He's raised some of the largest typical whitetails in North America. His farm produces the best hunting scents in the world. His life's quest is 200-inch typical whitetails. This is ConQuest 200.
Ready?
Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you this day and we thank you for the blessing you've given us with our family and our staff and our animals. And I pray, dear Lord, that you would give them another day of safety and blessing and help. And I pray, Lord, that you would give Doug and I the wisdom that we need to be the leaders that you've called us to be. And I ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The work on Doug Roberts' whitetail farm never ends. With a herd of approximately 250 animals, the deer must be tended to on a daily basis. Feeding, watering, and routine medical procedures are just a few of the responsibilities to maintain a healthy herd year-round.
To Karen and I, it's very important that our farm is tested to the highest standards for tuberculosis and CWD. Therefore, when our scents go out, we can give a 100% confidence level to the hunters using our scent products that they're not spreading diseases in the states that they're using our scent products.
Doug's farm not only breeds huge whitetail bucks, but also produces top-of-the-line hunting scents by collecting urine from his herd. The scents are manufactured, packaged, and distributed from the same property it's collected.
When you're talking about animal byproducts, it's always good to know where it comes from. I can't speak for other companies. I don't know where or how they get their product. But I do know that it would be reassuring to me if I was the consumer on the other side of this, seeing where it's coming from, knowing where it's coming from, and actually being able to call that person and talk to them about it.
Today, Doug and the ConQuest team will be testing the final group of deer for tuberculosis. The deer must be herded into the handling facility and then have the test administered one by one.
Every third year, and we've done this for the last 12 to 15 years, we have a TB accredited herd status. Every third year, we test every animal on the farm for tuberculosis.
Morning, Doc. Ready to finish this?
I don't know.
Last group.
So today, what we're going to do is we're actually going to go and do the initial scan test with Kurt Dunkel to see if we have any reactors in the deer herd for tuberculosis.
Last group's to inject, and then Thursday morning we'll have you back to check, and we'll be done with a whole herd test. Here we go. Here we go. There we go. What do we have tag number? 444.
Once the doe is restrained, the team has a very small window of time to shave its neck and administer the shot.
This is something we go through every 3 years. It's what we do. It's still, boy, it just really, it stops you in your tracks because of the potential of, if it wasn't right, if something was wrong, we could lose everything.
Yep.
Doug Roberts and his crew are in the process of testing his deer herd for tuberculosis. The test is given once every 3 years.
Here we go.
Every deer on the farm must pass through one at a time, have its neck shaved, and the test administered by a veterinarian. It's a stressful process, not only for the animal, but also for Doug and his team.
There's a reason Karen and I have chosen to collect our own urine from our own deer and our own deer farm. And that is because we know the testing situations that those deer have been under. They're in accredited programs for CWD and tuberculosis. Therefore, we know the urines that we're collecting and we're sending out to hunters is disease-free.
They're not all gonna fit in that cooler, so we're gonna need some of the other grizzly coolers too. We got, what, 2 other decent-sized ones in there in the office?
Today, Doug must test another group of deer. Only this time he plans on going alone. When a deer dies on the farm for any reason, the head is collected and frozen, then taken to the Department of Agriculture at Michigan State University to be tested for chronic wasting disease. CWD is a progressive, transmittable disease which affects the deer's brain and nervous system and is always fatal.
Okay, I'll see you guys in a while.
There is no live test right now to test for CWD. So the only way to test for CWD is on a dead animal. And the best place to test for that is in the head, lymph nodes, and the brainstem. I want to be there so we can make sure the tag numbers are identified correctly. They identify them, and then they give me a little card that has a number on it that coincides with that deer head.
Yellow 116.
So when they do the testing, I can go back and look to make sure every head was accounted for and every head is identified as CWD free.
We'd be empty.
Yeah.
With the CWD testing behind him, Doug heads back to the farm, where Nate and Talon are waiting to head to the annual NADIFA convention, where deer farmers from across the country meet to share ideas, research, and purchase supplies, equipment, and genetics.
For the NADIFA conference this year, Doug gets to take the boys with him. They've started their own little herd. And so now they have some skin in the game, and I think that it's going to really hit home with them more. Going to this, it's not just a trip, to look at antlers. It's actually going to really hit home to them that they could potentially be there at some point entering antlers in this as well.
One of the most anticipated events at the convention is the antler contest. Farmers have their genetics scored and categorized by Safari Club International.
Scotty Hooper.
Each year, we enter in our top breeder bucks into the antler competition at NADIFA. And this is to get the official score of each one of the deer to see where we fall in place with the rest of the industry, so I know kind of where I have to go with new genetics and new structures within the antler configuration of our deer.
Well, this is Crusader. Kind of excited. He's threw a couple extra little flyers here and stuff, but still pretty nice mainframe typical.
Safari Club International has their own scoring system. What they've done is they said if more than 7% of the total score is in non-typical points, it's going to be scored as a non-typical. With Crusader, I have high hopes that he can finish in the top third, but he has thrown some extra what we call non-typical points. And so it has me a little nervous whether he's going to make the typical category or the non-typical category. So time will tell. The deer industry, the deer farming industry, uses the SDI scoring system, and it's really because they credit the animal with everything that it grew on its head for that year. There are no deductions. So for example, if you take this set of antlers, this is a very typical looking antler, but this point here and then also this point here is both non-typical points. SCI includes those both in the total score of this side of this antler.
Die hard.
If the non-typical part is more than 7% of the total score, then it would simply be called a non-typical set of antlers.
Doug Roberts is at the North American Deer Farmers Convention in Alabama. Having submitted Crusader's 4-year-old sheds into the antler competition, Doug has high hopes that he'll finish in the top 3 of the typical category.
Kind of excited. He's threw a couple extra little flyers here and stuff, but still pretty nice mainframe typicals, so we'll see.
Crusader has grown several small, non-typical points. Doug can only hope that they don't account for more than 7% of the total SCI score, or Crusader will be entered into the non-typical category.
He threw these flyers this year that he's never thrown, so he's always had this little split here.
I'm nervous because the last couple of years we've been getting more compact. Still beautiful 6x6, 6x7 frames, but I've got to pull it out and I've got to extend it up.
Well, he scores 200 inches, so we're growing 200-inch typicals. The only thing that we found out is with all these little extras and splits, he actually scored SCI score as a non-typical this year, so he cannot be entered in the typical class. It's still a beautiful buck, and we've got the framework we need, but now we've got to really look at putting in some more width and putting in some more tine length and maybe cleaning up some of these splits and kickers.
Crusader has a beautiful look, and it's what most hunters would love to see. But from a scoring situation and trying to grow typicals, what it tells me is I have to clean the frame up a little bit more.
What are your 3 and 5 packages I saw?
346.
With Doug's typical genetics branching out, he heads to the auction later that evening. Breeding whitetails requires skill, passion, and most of all, knowledge.
He's trying to build and rebuild the genetic lines that have produced over 200-inch whitetails typically. This is a great undertaking, and I have such respect for that. I can't even begin to imagine how to do what he does.
When I'm looking at genetics for the farm and I'm trying to include the look with score, I choose to purchase first just looking at the deer. What's on his head? I just want to look at the buck and go, wow.
The brow tine of that thing. 6x5.
Doug has very specific criteria when choosing genetics to add to his herd.
Doug's kind of been known as the deer professor, which Doug is not a nickname kind of guy. But he's a retired teacher, and he's serious about what he does, and he's always intensely thinking about how to design deer and what to do next. And it really is a fascinating jigsaw puzzle to put these genetic lines together and then to have to wait and see what comes from that.
I need to pay for the things I purchased.
With new genetics in hand, Doug anticipates the future of his farm. But it'll be 3 or 4 years before knowing whether the semen purchase was a success or failure.
At the auction, I bought a straw of Gladiator Sunset, 1 straw of White Oak, and 1 straw of Beyond Belief. That's what I'm specifically looking for, is that next typical look that has no relation or very little relation to my genetics, and artificially inseminate and start another genetic line on my farm.
Hello? This Doug?
Doug receives a phone call from Kurt Dunkel. It's the phone call no deer farmer wants to receive.
What's going on? What do we got?
7 of the does in his herd have had a reaction to the initial tuberculosis scan test.
2 kind of strains that are contagious between animals and people.
We're holding our breath until the state vet or a federal vet gets out here. We're on quarantine until that takes place.
I just want to see what he threw. I put him on my best though. And I flushed some does.
After a successful trip to the NADIFA convention, where he was able to purchase several straws of buck semen to improve the genetics on his farm, Doug Roberts has received the call that no deer farmer wants. He's been notified that several of the deer in his herd have reacted to the initial tuberculosis screening a few days earlier.
Hers is real hard to read.
Well, we ended up having 6 or 7 reactors on the initial scan test. So it's normal to have a certain number of reactors. We always have had. But once we have reactors to the scan test, the farm gets quarantined.
We know that we've done everything in our part to make sure everything is the way it should be here and a healthy herd. But I'm telling you what, it's a nail biter for those 3 days until that vet gets out here and we retest that deer.
Doug must now call in the state veterinarian to administer a comparative test, which will let them know if the reaction actually was tuberculosis or a less serious infection.
When I first started into the Accredited program, I couldn't even sleep at night. I mean, for 3 nights, my stomach was upset. You couldn't sleep because you're thinking, oh my gosh, if I have tuberculosis in one of these deer, they're gonna put the whole herd down. And we have such an investment into the herd. Now, after all these years, I've come to realize that, if they have an infection of some sort, if they have a cold, like we would get, there's so many factors that can give you that scan test reaction. But once the state and federal vet comes and gives us specifics, I don't really worry about it anymore.
And there's all the results right there.
The second test has come back negative. A huge relief for Doug and his crew.
This seems silly to me. Because, you'd like to know who released the quarantine and when it was released, but
Sure.
you don't know the quarantine.
I appreciate it.
Nice meeting you.
Okay, you too. Take care.
Sure.
Thanks for everything.
After receiving a clean bill of health from the Michigan Department of Ag TB testing, Doug has also discovered that the CWD test has come back negative.
With our scent company, I don't bring deer onto this farm. We virtually have a closed herd, and it's for the safety of making sure that all of our urines and all of our scents are disease-free. We're also in the CWD certification program, and we've actually have made it through the first 5 going into 6 years, where every single head of every deer 12 months old or older that either dies or is culled off the farm is turned in for that testing.
God has blessed us so well with an incredible herd of animals, and we've actually now put in an insert in every package letting the customer know that this is urine taken from an accredited herd, disease-free.
For Doug Roberts and the ConQuest crew, the health of their deer herd ranks up there under God, country, and family. Deer farming is a lifestyle, a passion. They realize that the daily stresses of their profession are temporary, and with a little determination, constant care, and a lot of hard work, their deer will remain healthy for years to come.